It's unfortunate, but it doesn't seem like it was kind of fully figured out. It almost felt like like we're kind of the guinea pigs and them figuring out the system, which
Mm.
wasn't great, so to speak. And so as soon as we got open, it was a changing model. Every 2 weeks there was something new. It was rapidly changing verticals and changing systems, and oh, this is no longer this, it's this now, and oh, we got to change this every step away while you're trying to launch this business and grow it. It just feels like 2 steps forward, one back every so often. This isn't what I had in mind when I wanted to open a proven, consistent, efficient model and streamline this the way it's supposed to go.
Yo, this is the Streetwise Podcast, where we help you level up your game, level up your leadership, and level up your life. I'm your host, Matthew McReynolds. I'm a multi-brand franchisee, and I'm a franchise consultant, which means I help people find, launch, and build their ideal franchise business. My main goal is to help you get off of zero and become the person that your dreams need you to be. Buckle up, get your popcorn ready, let's go. Streetwise Nation, today, franchisee of, let's hold off on the brand name for now. People will see what matters. Appreciate you for joining the Streetwise Podcast. How you doing, man?
Yeah, no problem, brother. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So tell me about what did before getting into franchise ownership. You're currently a franchisee, but what's your background before franchise ownership?
So I guess a quick history. So I started off, I was a former Navy diver for about 6 years there. I got to do a lot of cool things, really enjoyed that. And then recently, I decided to make the switch, moved to Colorado, did a couple multifamily apartment flips down there, and then used a bit of that to get into franchising, and here we are.
So when you say apartment flips, what did that actually entail for you? What was the work that you had to put in? I mean, was that like a full-time? Were you treating that like a full-time job? What is that? I've never invested in real estate yet, so coach me up.
You see all these podcasts everywhere, or anybody that's gotten to investing at some point or another in real estate, they've probably seen the Bigger Pockets podcasts and other books and all this stuff, analysis paralysis. And I was just going over it so much that I saw the biggest gripe with getting into it was people just didn't take that first step. And so I was like, all right, I was a Navy diver. If I could do that, let me just do this now. I was like, why not?
Let's go.
Take that first step. And so it was tough in the beginning because nobody knows you. You haven't done a deal ever. So banks, they're like, who is this guy trying to get money and raise capital sort of thing. So it was tough the first one, but I would just wake up every day before I went to bed, middle of the day, and I would go on to LoopNet. I'd have brokers send me their CoStar reports, whatever. I was just looking, trying to get to understand the market. I was just obsessed. Like I was obsessive over it. I would check it. First thing I'd wake up, no Instagram, no Twitter. It was LoopNet. So
yeah,
just find out what was a good deal. My first deal, I found it was just a 5-unit in this area called the Lehigh region in Denver. So it was very, very good location. It just wasn't updated. It was older. And I saw it come online and I was, after looking at deals 3 times a day, I was like, okay, this is it. It's like, if I could get this one, this would set me up. And so it's a very long battle going back and forth. Eventually I was able to close on it. It was actually, as soon as I found it, it was already under contract immediately, but I was like, you know what? Let me just go for it. I know this is a deal.
Come on.
I toured it, went there anyways, talked to the listing agent, and he was like, yeah, we are under contract, but they want a massive, it was like $80,000 concession. And he was like, I'm almost positive it's going to fall out of contract. And I was like, okay, perfect. I was like,
there we go. Come on.
As soon as it does. And it kind of worked out because as soon as that happened, nobody else was notified. So when it came online, everybody looking
in the right place, right time.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody else is looking for a deal too. So you got to compete with all these other bigger guys. And, they kind of brush it off because they thought it was already gone. But by just being persistent, I was able to get into it when it was on the market one more week, after that. And, I was one of, I think only like 3 or 4 offers that came in. And I guess, she liked my story and stuff. And I was able to get it. And that was kind of the first phase into it. It was tough, but it could be done.
And so how'd you put together like the funding in order to make that possible? Did you have some cash on the back end? Did you use leverage from a bank? Maybe explain that part to me.
Yeah, that part actually, I would say, is probably one of the toughest aspects, even more so than like finding a deal or anything else. The financing side could be hard because, especially early on, if you have no experience doing it before, private lenders and stuff, they're going to be skeptical, even banks. A lot of times when you find a deal like this, they'll lend you on basically the income of a property, especially if it's commercial. And so unfortunately, many times, because it's a deal, that means it's usually below market rents. It's not where it needs to be. And so a lot of times you're going to have a higher leverage when you're putting, capital down on a property like this. And so what I ended up doing was actually ended up going to a hard money lender for my first two deals, really, just because one, it was a quicker close. Two, they only needed 15% down. And three, they were able to fund, construction, the property, everything all in one go. And so the interest rate was ridiculous. It was like 14%. So it was crazy. Yeah, but it was
Oh my gosh.
IO only, which is just interest only.
Okay.
Prepayment penalties, no other contingencies, anything. So it ended up working out that was kind of my best bet. I just had to move on it. So that was what I did for first two deals, really.
Okay, so you get the first one under your belt. You use the same method to get the second one. So your first two deals are similar, probably a little bit different in nuance, but you start to get some momentum. And then what? Like, how many deals had you done, and how did you start seeing some success, and how did you overcome that learning curve? I know that's a lot of questions, but I want to gauge the conversation and start to like really understand your development and your growth in that space before you went into franchise ownership.
Yeah. So, I mean, once you do that first deal, people here on the street, lenders and other people looking for deals as well, brokers, the word kind of gets out. And so from the first deal, I ended up making a relationship with a very good broker friend of mine, Kevin Woolsey. And so once that came out, now you start building these relationships and you start working with these other guys who are also looking to dispose of different properties and different asset types. And it's funny, as soon as I did that first deal, I started getting call after call after call from just like, seems like dozens of brokers, because they could see that they see the path. Like they'll look on CoStar and stuff and they'll see the path of, oh, this property was bought by this guy and he bought it for this much. And oh, a year later, he sold it for this. What? He's like, then you start checking out the brokers there, because every time when you sell property, they'll make like a little blog page usually. And so then they'll go on there and then they'll look at it and see what happened after. And I was like, who's this guy? And then
Sure.
get out. So that's what kind of helped to the second deal, because the second deal was off market. And so it never even hit LoopNet or anything like that. So now I
Went straight to you.
Yeah, it went straight to me, and it kind of goes away from having to compete with all these people, because that's really where you start getting better deals, is when you can start building these relationships and they can trust that you're going to close on it if it's a worthwhile investment. So that's what enabled me to do the second deal. And then I took it straight back to him when I sold it, and it was all cash close, 21 days, and just move on to the next one.
Now
And
you're doing this and you're still going to school, right? Like why go real estate? Why not get a job? Why not? Like, what was your path initially, or was this something that you already knew that you were looking to do?
I've always been interested in real estate ever since I was probably, I don't know, I would say freshman in high school. I was like
Okay.
17, 18, going to investment meetings in Sacramento. I was originally from the Bay Area, and all this
Nice.
stuff. They're like, I would show up and they're like, who's this 18-year-old kid going to this meeting on a Saturday? It's like, what's wrong with him? I've always been interested, but I wanted to go out and travel and do something exciting first. So that's kind of how I became a diver originally. But I was looking out in the world and I was like, everybody I know, they're going to school and getting a business degree, and that's great. But I felt like I wanted to do, I guess, something a little different before I kind of settled down and started pursuing more financial freedoms and whatnot. So I'm kind of glad I did, because I think it helped to instill a lot of values in me that are still valuable to this day.
What's going on, everybody? I hope you're liking the conversation this far. Please take a moment, give it a 5-star review. It really helps spread this out to as many people as possible. All right, let's get back to the episode. What were some big lessons that you learned from being a diver that you've been able to take into your journey as an entrepreneur?
Action cures all fear. It's a saying.
Mm,
Heard that time and time again, and it really is true. There's something like, I feel, different that happens in your brain once you could push yourself to a point and you go all in on something and you succeed. And I think just having that feeling of putting the work in and seeing the results just changed how you look at things, gives you a little bit more confidence. It's like I use that as a stepping stone for everything else I do. It's like, okay, I did this, I put in the work, I did the time. Why can't I do this now?
sure.
And it just grows and grows. I don't know if I would advise everybody to just jump straight into flipping commercial straight off the bat. I really wasn't my intention, because a lot of people, they'll flip a house and then maybe a duplex or a triplex,
Slowly build up.
and then maybe they never touch commercial, but it just kind of worked out how it did. that first deal was a 5 unit.
So in doing real estate and doing those big flips, I mean, are you buying them, holding them, getting renters, and then collecting that money, or are you building them out, fixing them up, and then flipping them for a big bite of the apple after that?
Yeah, a bit of everything. At this stage
Okay,
where I'm at, still growing, it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to hold on to these for long term. I'm still in growth mode, and so I'm trying to get to that point where I can start maybe holding on to one, flipping another, and then keep growing as well. But until I get to the point where there's enough capital in the tank to sort of play the monopoly game, so to speak, it really makes more sense for me to flip these guys, whenever they come in, because commercial real estate really is, it's just a business. You got to look at the numbers, and if I could get somebody in there, do some renovations and raise the income, then it raises the value. And so that directly translates again into, some light business ownership stuff. And that was, I guess, what gave me the bug to maybe make that switch later on.
yeah, okay. So give me a range on how many deals or transactions you've done, and then again maybe a range on how much money you've earned from doing the transactions. I don't expect down to the dollar, but I need to understand this because I've never really dove into this space before.
No, no, it's all good. Yeah, so I mean, it's nothing crazy. I only started this, fairly early on, and there's syndicators out there that that do thousands of doors or whatever, but it's not really, they don't really own those outright. But I'm trying to do this with as many or as low partners as I can to try to maintain ownership. So the first deal, let's see, it took about a year. I bought it for 920, and then ended up selling it for 154, um, roughly. But again, I had a investor friend who wanted to get into real estate too, and we kind of teamed up, and
Sure.
so that was split. But that was also not including a full reno. So I think I probably spent 180 on the reno for everything. And I
Okay.
would I would again, I think I could have done that for way less now, but
Sure.
it was my first one, and I it still worked, but I think there was definitely room to save on some money because it should never cost 180 to flip a 5 unit ever. So
I wouldn't know any better, but now I do. Appreciate you for
yeah.
that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can get it done for a bit less, but that being said,
Okay.
I had some initial sentimental value of
Learning curve
really,
and everything.
yeah,
Sure. Yeah.
make it nice and do a good job, and I mean, it paid off, so I can't say it's
Yeah, no doubt.
the wrong thing to do, but yeah, so I did that guy, and then just a few months later, really rolled that straight into the second deal, which was a 6 unit, and so I'm still trying to grow, and for that one was quick. We did that in 3.5 months
Okay.
from close to close, acquisition to disposition. It was 3.5 months, which is crazy. And so on the second deal, I partnered with my other buddy, who's actually another franchisee and also a local friend. He's been doing commercial construction for many, many years, and so we kind of partnered up on that one, which actually I think helped a lot, just because I did everything outside of construction, and then when it came time for renovations, he kind of took over and ran that. So we made a pretty good team that in that aspect. But for that was quick. So I think I got that for like just under 1.2, and then we sold that again for really about the same, 1.5 something, 1.52.
So you're making 300 on a transaction here, but you roll it into the next bid. How do
Yeah.
you pay how are you making money on this? Are you just giving yourself a percentage of it? And you don't got to give me like crazy details. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
understand the thought process of how you turn in this, especially in the beginning stages of it.
It's again, if you could find someone, like a friend or a family or partner, that's how, a lot of people start. You can kind of grow and sort of learn that aspect together, and they're okay with, you got to have that trust there, right? Because you're handling a
Yeah.
lot of capital. And so I think that helps start it off, because for the first deal, I didn't know what I know now, what was the right agreements and what to do, and, legally, and all the liability stuff. And so for the first deal, I just had a promissory note, which was, probably not the most ideal. The property was in my name. It was just a promissory note. And it's kind of, it's more of like a handshake deal, really.
Okay.
Luckily, there's a lot of trust, a lot of trust in me. So
Sure.
there would be no, foul play for sure. That being said, once I got to the second one, I was like, okay, there's better ways to do this. And so that's when I actually had a real estate attorney, and we drafted up a rock solid operating agreement. We had all our responsibilities and ownership percentages laid out. And that's important too, because for when it comes time for tax season, I'm on the hook for that first deal for all of that, because it's just my name. So
Mhm.
splitting it that way too is also a big, talk to your CPA about that, a big tax thing too, because now you can split up that net gain and loss just on your ownership percentage, not on the entire deal. So, but
Oh,
yes,
that's super interesting. Yeah. Now, what
yeah.
else you got?
So by the time the second one came in, I ended up making an LLC, having, completely out of my name. And so doing it a little bit better the right way. And so as I progress, I'd like to get more investors and grow a little bit bigger. And that's when you got to start forming LLPs and stuff like that. But that's well down the road for sure. But
Sure. No, that's cool, man. Because a lot of this platform is to help people get off of zero, and for you to be able to explain. I mean, you're a young guy, fresh out of being a Navy diver, and then you're going into starting in real estate, and you're flipping these commercial properties. Before you get into franchise ownership, you're seeing a course and a trajectory that you're going down. You've proven you've got grit. You've proven that you're willing to take risks, and you're proven that you're willing to plug in and hustle on something, and you've got determination, and you're not going to give up even when it looks like
yep,
the odds are stacked against you. So you're on this path, and then your mindset switches and you start looking at franchise opportunities. Maybe explain to me what that bug was. Where did that come from?
yeah.
And then what was your mindset in getting into operating a franchise business?
Yeah. So the idea, nobody wants to, I guess, stay in their 9 to 5 forever. Everybody always has a dream at some point to, escape the rat race, so to speak, and really just gain not just financial freedom, but just freedom of your life, really. And so starting off with real estate, it was a lot of very high in, high out transactions, right? It was like you're all in on this deal and you're not going to see anything until you finish, so to speak. And so I was trying to look for something that could grow steadily, not just have something all in or all out on every deal, but something that would, be a slow crawl, kind of grow, and I can form it daily versus just per deal. And so that's when I started looking into the franchise aspects, more specifically, like home service franchise concepts, just because, I have some more understanding, I would say, when it comes to like home service brands or home service work than I would when, another fitness one or something like that. It's just
Yeah, beauty salon. Yeah, it
more in my
fits in what.
wheelhouse, uh,
Sure.
so to speak. And so that's why I ended up kind of making the jump to wanting to say, hey, okay, doing these deals is great, but let me try some luck and start a business, so to speak, and grow that on the side. And so not to mention with these large transactions going in and out so fast, there's some huge capital gains, right? That gets hit by starting these businesses. And so one incentive partially for me was that, okay, I can start this franchise and it'll offset all of the capital gains. It's more risk for sure, but if you can do it strategically and have it align with what you're doing, not only can I start the business, but it mitigates some financial risk just because now it's instead of paying the IRS, I'm paying myself, so to speak.
Investing in your businesses, paying into the future and the portfolio that you're trying to build. So the
Yeah.
strategy was there. I mean, it makes sense to me because we're doing something similar on our end.
Uh,
In theory, that was supposed to go in theory.
yeah.
So tell me about, I almost got ahead of myself. Tell me about your investigation process. Did you look at multiple brands? And if you did, tell me about the different industries and the different, and why did you end up picking the one that you picked?
Yeah. So, I mean, I probably started the same way most, they get an idea, they get interested and they ended up reaching out to, what was it, like a franchise broker, what they call it, or specialist
Franchise
or consultant, so to speak. And so that's when I started, getting those conversations going where I told him my goals, my interest, and he would lay out, sort of filter through the ones he thought could be good, could be bad, up and coming, whatnot. And so that's how I ended up narrowing it down to the one I ended up going with. But yeah, I guess that's kind of the run through.
Okay. So this is where I want to dive in, man. So you get into the business, and then what happens? How is your launch? And I just want to know about your experience as a franchisee. The bulk of this conversation, this is where we're going to sit at. I wanted for the audience and for myself to hear about your background and hear about how, you kind of went in and you're willing to take some risk on these things, but your experience as a franchisee, not all of them turn out well, and it's sad when it happens, but it's true. And a lot of these platforms, they only talk about the positive and the good, but I want to dive in and really express the realness of some of these situations that people find themselves in. So tell me about your experience in launching this business, and really where you are now with it, and then we'll kind of dive into the weeds on what took place in the middle.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, I ended up going with sort of the brand I felt was right and had most potential, so to speak. Initially, just because of a lot of the vertical systems that I thought were at play, and it seemed like they had launched many other brands that appeared to be successful before. So I was like, okay, it seems like they know what they're doing. The vertical systems line up well. I liked sort of also the brand as well. Like I thought it had some very good marketing presence.
All right, so you were looking at the brand and you liked the verticals that they offered that seemingly worked.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It covered 4 different sort of service lines all in one or so. So I thought, again, that's what it appeared to be, sort of like a all-in-one package, so to speak. But unfortunately, you get to the training, and then all of a sudden, it seems like that 4 is now 2, and then we start get it up and running, and then you start realizing quickly, you're like, okay, it's really just the one, because it's tough to optimize multiple service lines under a singular company at first. Maybe down the road it gets a little bit better, but yeah, so quickly it just starts transitioning to something with a bit of a different idea. And not just that, but starting off was full trust was there. I was like, okay, these guys know what they're doing. That's why you get into franchising, is because they have a proven system and a model and experience getting these things running, where it would what's the word, it would be good to listen to them, so to speak. And so off the bat, I had, a leasing space. We have our big office, 3 vehicles, multiple employees, all this stuff, where really, I mean, that's not ideal. And I would say not optimal, especially in this service. It's unfortunate, but it doesn't seem like it was kind of fully figured out. It almost felt like, like we're kind of the guinea pigs and them figuring out the system, which wasn't great, so to speak. And so as soon as we got open, it was a changing model. Every 2 weeks, there was something new. It was rapidly changing verticals and changing systems. And, oh, this is no longer this, it's this now. And, oh, we got to change this every step away while you're trying to launch this business and grow it. It just feels like 2 steps forward, 1 back every so often. This isn't what I had in mind when I wanted to open a proven, consistent, efficient model and streamline this the way it's supposed to go.
Yo, thanks for listening this far. It's at this point in the episode that I want to talk about Streetwise franchising, teaching, training, building. Streetwise franchising. As a franchise consultant, it's my job, it's my absolute pleasure, and it's my mission to help aspiring entrepreneurs find, launch, and build their ideal business. I've been a franchise owner for almost a decade. I know what it means to struggle. I know what it means to build a team. If you're ready to get off of zero, if you're ready to build something for yourself, visit streetwisefranchising.com. Let's get the conversation started. Don't wait until tomorrow to build your future. It starts today. Streetwise franchising. Stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Let's get back to the episode. So I'm going to stop you there because you've hit on some pretty significant points. And there's a big thing in franchising about semi-absentee or semi-involved or the executive model or the manage the manager. And a lot of brands are backtracking on that rhetoric because they sold the model in that way. Now they're realizing when people weren't engaging full-time in the business was not successful, even though they pitch it as, oh yeah, you can put 5-10 hours a week and everything will be fine. For the record, you were putting in more than that into this business, correct? Like you were working this business. Tell me about what were you doing? Yeah, what was the amount of time that you put into the business on a weekly or on a daily basis? Like what was your schedule? How were you engaging with this team? Let's talk about that.
Unfortunately, that I quickly realized that was not a path to success. The semi-absentee idea, I would go as far as to say it's just false.
Now, were you pitched that a part of your development process? Was there any verbiage around this is going to be a semi-absentee opportunity or an executive opportunity or semi-involved opportunity?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was almost half the reason why I wanted to go with this, because I'm still wanting to keep doing commercial deals as more of my full-time thing, and then still be able to put in the work and grow this thing as well, but without it being all consuming. Quickly, I realized that you need to be there every day, all day, to make things happen. The idea that it's passive or semi-absentee is really just a blatant lie. You need to be there for the success of the business. You can't just keep it on autopilot. And so,
What kind of stuff were you doing to plug into the business? What did that actually look like for you on a day to day? I mean, you're working with the crews,
yeah,
you're going to community stuff. Hit me with some of that.
yeah. When trade shows, I was out knocking doors in the wintertime. Be 50 degrees out, I'm out knocking doors, trying to push business, making calls, calling every single. I had a big contact list, and I was just calling every single contractor or business with even a relatable platform that we can maybe help each other with. Going out there, being involved every day. I had multiple employees, and so I had the whole team on there, just trying to grow this thing as fast as humanly possible. Going to chamber of commerce meetings, the whole BNI thing. Pretty much any possible way that there was to put in the work and grow this thing I was doing. If it was even remotely a good idea or could be a good idea to do it, we were doing it. There was no like sitting on our hands and just waiting for it to come. You got to be out there and attack the day.
And that's facts with any business. It sounds like the way that you were structured and the way that it was presented to you, you were set up for failure. But something that you had said earlier was it seemed like they were trying to figure it out as they went along. The part of a franchise is that it's a proven business model with
Mhm.
a proven blueprint that somebody can invest in the model, invest in the systems, invest in the support, and they can build a business. There's no promise that you're going to get rich overnight, but you can build a business based on what has been proven in other markets across the country. Now, there are concepts that are emerging, and there's a risk when you invest in an emerging franchise business. And so, for myself, as we talked about the consultants as the broker, I currently am one of those individuals. I'm on consulting calls multiple times a week. I warn people about emerging brands because of the risk and because of my personal experience. And from it sounds like your personal experience, there's a big risk in emerging brands. But the thing that makes emerging brands okay is if there's a founder, if there's an established presence, and the business has some sort of background and proven success that you can build your business off of. But what I'm starting to see, and what it seems like is a trend, I don't know if this phrase reverse franchising is a thing, but
Yeah.
it sounds like there's brands out there that are selling franchises and then getting franchisees into the system. The franchisees are figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And then the franchise system is adapting on the back end without ever having something that was proven in the first place. Does that resonate with your personal experience?
Yeah, no, that's pretty spot on, I would say. And it's unfortunate, but yeah, that's pretty much how it's been going.
How would you coach somebody up who was looking into franchising? Because I mean, it's a shame, man. I mean, you're a young guy. You've got a lot of future success ahead of you, and we're all going to take big losses at some point, especially when
Yeah.
we take big swings. You and I both. What would you say to somebody who was actively investigating franchise opportunities? How would you coach them up in avoiding a situation that you're currently in right now?
I would say be as cautious as you can. When you're looking at all these ideas and concepts, you want to have your guard up for sure. Don't go into it with an too open of a mind. With an us being the entrepreneurial mindset, we have a optimistic sort of outlook on things, right? I mean, you need to be able to push through day to day the way we have been, and so I think probably having a little bit more caution when exploring opportunities and really, really digging deep, real deep into some of these ideas because a lot of these guys are very very good at hiding or brushing off so the sort of negative
Mm.
PR that could have taken place. And so if you don't really dig deep, you're probably not going to be able to find it. And so that's one thing I would say is that really ask around, make those validation calls, talk to people who are previous owners or involved in other aspects of it, and don't just take it at face value. Really really dig deep on that due diligence phase because that's important when you're making such a big swing or putting such a big bet on something. It's easy for us to think, oh, we're just betting on ourselves running this business. The success comes down to us, and that's true in a sense. But if the system that you're getting into is a bad system and it's not something where you can maximize your own potential every day, then maybe it's not the one for you. And that's something that's really tough because it's very easy to be like, oh, it's a new business. You got to put in the work. It must be a me problem sort of thing. And it really you have to take that step back and look at what's going on and be like, really, it's just a failing concept. It's not so much you.
What would you say if you're looking at yourself in the mirror where you could have done a better job? If you can just coach yourself up from where you started, because I want to talk timeline and I want to talk about when you started to notice and when you started to realize that the ship might have been sinking. And so, but today, the day that we're recording this right now, looking yourself in the mirror, looking backwards, what could you have done differently?
It's tough because I did do quite a bit of due diligence and research, but unfortunately, a lot of the issues that arose didn't happen until maybe a month or two after I opened up. I started doing some more research and finding all these related posts, and it wasn't until after I was already going that it started arising. And so, I guess looking back, what would I do? I think the biggest help would be looking at the fixed fees and costs associated with running it because dive
There you
deep
go.
into the contract because a lot of those fees they stack up and that's one of the biggest now I'm after talking to many other owners and franchisees as well is that those fees is really where it sneaks up on you, and that's something that you can't change or control down the road no matter how much revenue you gain or how hard you drive that business. That's coming out of your bank every day no matter what. So really getting that dialed in so that you're very familiar with what's being taken out of your account because once you sign that FDD, you're done.
I talk to people all the time. I think the rhetoric is often around, okay, you want freedom, you hate what you're currently doing, or you want to build something. So let me just show you and let's look at all these amazing brands over here. But really diving in, I loved what you said about the fees and the overhead and like, can the business actually realistically support the burden that you're going to place on it by taking out a large SBA loan?
Yeah.
Can it actually realistically support it? And diving into validation, I mean, that's huge. If there's other businesses that are not able to do it, then what are the odds that yours is? And we can talk pie in the sky, dream mode all day, but what's the reality of the situation? You also talked about something that I want to dive into, and it's realizing that you're not alone. And I've had so many franchisees reach out to me recently, just because of the content that I put out and the way that I engage on this platform. And it can be very isolating when you're operating a business.
Oh yeah.
You took a leap on yourself. There's a lot of pride in being an entrepreneur, and there's a lot of energy that you can derive from that. But when it's not going well, that can turn right back into you and make it feel like you're the only one and it's your fault that this thing is failing, when there's a lot of other people out there that are going through the same thing. What was it about reaching out to other franchisees that helped you realize that it wasn't just you?
It's easy for like-minded people like us where it's like you really want to put in the work and see the fruition of that hard work paying off. And so when it doesn't start going that way, it's easy for us to be very hard and critical on ourselves. And that's something I'm actively working on and growing and changing. It's been a year of growth for sure in that department, which has been good. But don't be afraid to reach out because once you do and you start realizing there might be more at play, it really kind of helps give you that validation where it's like, okay, maybe there might be more going on here than just what's going on for our location or our singular spot. Maybe this is something that we could work on brand wide, so to speak, and sort of really get the feedback of what is going well and what isn't going well and why. Because once you start working together with everyone else, you don't feel like you're on that island anymore, even if they're in another state or city or whatever. You start seeing it for what it is, and it's it could be very relieving to know that there's a lot of other people out there that are going through the same thing you are. You're not just alone.
Facts, man. Yeah, I know in my experience, I've dealt with situations where I've been made to feel like I was the only one struggling.
Hmm.
And it was only through reaching out to other franchisees and other people in the system to realize that this was a system-wide problem, not just a Matthew problem. It's
Yeah.
not just my location that's struggling. Sure, there's things that I can do better. We can always do better. We're never as good as we could be, right? Like we're not perfect. Our community, the business that you invested in is not going to perfectly match your community no matter what. Nothing is gonna just replicate perfectly, even if it's a franchise with the most tied up and pinned up systems. It's
Hmm.
not actually perfect. There's always something that could be better. But if there's systemic problems, it's important to engage with these other franchisees, because what I've also realized is not all franchise systems encourage that level of engagement. So if
Yeah.
you're listening to this right now, and if you feel like your franchise system is not encouraging you reach out, or not willing to meet you where you are and say, you know what, so and so from across the country is going through the same thing. Let's connect you two together. I mean, I've heard stories about brand presidents literally telling you, I'm not going to talk to you about the other people. I'm only here to talk about your problems and what you can do better. And it's really sad, man. And I feel blessed to have a platform like this, and to know people like you, and to have franchisees from all over the country reaching out to me because of this platform, because they felt that way. And it doesn't need to be that way, because on the flip side, I talk to a lot of franchisees as well that love their system, that have
Hmm.
support across the board. They're brand presidents, the founders, even when they're struggling, they're willing to come out and hop on a call. And that's the type of stuff that I believe in. That's the type of stuff that grows this industry. And it's a shame when you have a bad experience and this is your first brand.
Yeah.
How has your view of franchising changed since this experience?
I mean, I think it's still viable. It's tough because obviously there's a bit of a bad taste working with ones or concepts, I guess, where you could go through some more foul play. But I still think it exists for a reason. It's not like it doesn't work. You just have to make sure that you're getting in with somebody you can trust and really rely on. And you know that you're going to have each other's back, because it's not just a business, it's a relationship. You have to trust each other. It's not just a one-way street where it's like, okay, once you sign that FDD, you're locked in and it's a one-sided relationship. It goes both ways. And so I guess looking at how it's changed my view, I would say personally, I would probably just stick with real estate at this point, just because I enjoy it a little bit more. And I think I'm doing fairly good at it. And I know I kind of like where that is going a bit more, but it's still doable. I have a lot of the friends that have another concept and it's going great. It just really depends on who you're getting a relationship with, and what's going to happen with those next steps.
Facts. Who you get into relationship with. And that's another thing that I talk about on this platform. If there's any red, orange, even yellow flags,
Yeah.
please do not ignore them. If you go to Discovery Day, if you're talking to leadership and something about it
Hmm.
just doesn't feel right, if you're not genuinely impressed, if you don't have crushes on the people that you're going, completely platonic crushes on the people that you're going into business with, because you're so impressed with the founding story, you're so impressed with the support. But it's tough, because there are concepts out there that they talk a big game and they show a lot of good stuff, and it's not until you get involved in the system. And so that goes back into validation and really diving in there.
Yeah.
What's your plan now? Like, what are you doing now that you're in this space? We've looked backwards, we've looked at your current
Mhm.
space, and now looking forward.
You got to know when to throw in the towel. So,
Yeah.
you can push the can down the road so far, but really looking at it, you gotta get to a point where like, okay, is there anything we could do? After reaching out to the brand and talking to everybody, waving your flags, like, hey, we got to make a change. Something's gotta happen here. I could see this on the horizon months and months ago, 6, 7 months ago. And I'm out here waving my flag like, hey, we got to make a change. Something's got to be done. And if they're not listening and they're not willing to adapt or die, right? So at some point, you got to be like, okay, change is not going to be made. You're locked into this thing. So at some point, you just got to move on.
It's crazy, man. And you are not alone in that space. Again, I hear stories about it, and
Yeah.
it's sad that it happens, and it's a shame that not more people speak on it, because it's so avoidable. That's a part of the reason why I want to do this series, because I want people to know not just the risk, because people know the risk, but also the stories and how it's avoidable. It's extremely avoidable if you do solid research, not just on what the business is offering and the due diligence on the industry, but doing solid research on the actual people that you're going into business with. And if there are any sort of, like I said before, yellow flags, orange flags, red flags, that doesn't always mean you have to stop,
Yeah.
but it means you need to tread with caution and do some additional research and additional validation, because there are great opportunities out there. It's just a shame.
Yeah.
when franchising gets done poorly. And you don't want to assume that people are inherently evil. Maybe they're just incompetent, but both things can destroy lives. And I want to make sure that I'm using this platform to educate folks. And so I appreciate you for being willing to come on and talk about your story. And hopefully we can help people either A, feel like they're not alone,
Hmm.
and that they're not the only ones struggling, and that if they are, they should reach out and they should connect with other people in their system. But also, if somebody's looking at franchising and looking at opportunities, tread lightly, tread cautiously, be very aware of what you're getting into. Also, something that you said earlier about the investment level. If there's vast discrepancies between investment levels of one type of concept versus another, if there's a paint and power wash that costs close to $1 million to invest in and others in the industry are 100, 200,000, let's dive into that. Why?
Yeah.
And that can be a part of our validation next time as well. But man, you got anything else you want to hit us with on here?
I would just say take your time. Don't feel rushed to get into it, because a lot of times if you start calling these companies or these brands and there kind of feels like it's been a little bit rushed, that should be a pretty big red flag as to why.
Man,
Um, there might be something to it. So don't be afraid to just take your time and go easy with it. Enjoy the process.
no, man, thanks for coming on. And I appreciate you for your willingness to share your story with the audience. To the listener, man, reach out. If you got any additional questions, reach out to me. You can follow me on LinkedIn. Until next time, stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Peace. All right, everybody, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for making it to the end. Hey, if this episode added any value to your life at all, please like it, share it, give me a 5-star review. It's the only way that this show is going to gain traction and help more people achieve their dreams. If you're ready to start your franchise journey, visit streetwisefranchising.com. Let's set up a time to talk. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Until next time, stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Peace.